Welcome to Business as Unusual. This is the live stream where we explore the pressing issues and emerging trends that are shaping our business landscape today. We're going to start in just a few minutes, so if you have any questions, please feel free to add them to our chat, and I will try to get to all of them during today's session. We'd also love to hear where you're joining us from, so please feel free to add where you're coming in from to the chat as well. It's always interesting. I'm Kathy Steele, and I'm the CEO of Red Caffeine, and I'll be your host today. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with Red Caffeine, we are a growth consultancy, and we build and execute go-to-market plans for ambitious mid-market companies. Our service offering includes a fractional team led by a senior level marketing leader, as you'll meet today. And this enables a business to scale rapidly without having to hire a wide range of full-time staff members. I cannot believe we are sitting here in the middle of September and we're talking about 2025 already. It just feels like this year has gone incredibly fast, but we are going to be diving into some of the trends that business leaders should have on their mind as they start to plan for their 2025 growth strategy. And I fortunately got the opportunity to attend IMTS, the International Manufacturing Technology Show, plus a recent smaller innovation show in the facilities maintenance space. And so I'm totally geeking out about how technology is just the driving force behind big business progress in all of our industry sectors. So today we're going to be leaning in a lot to how AI, e-commerce, and sales automation are starting to optimize sales efforts and improve some of the marketing performance expectations and also enhance the experience of customers. We're going to switch gears also and talk about another hot topic that has really become a significant part of things that our clients are working on and part of their growth strategies, and that is M&A. We're going to be talking about how mergers and acquisitions are part of a growth lane for expansion, or if they're thinking about succession, how to help their business get well positioned for sale and get the most out of their business valuation. So I'm thrilled to have two of the smart people I get to work with on a very regular basis. We've got Amy Anderson, our VP of Client Services, and Bill Skowronski, our Gosh, I can't say I had an 18-hour day, so I'm going to use that as for your name, for messing up your name, Bill. But he is our content director at Red Caffeine. So I'm going to turn it over to them. I need to take a drink of water, obviously, and let them give you their own personal introductions. And Amy and Bill, would you mind just sharing something that's not on your professional bio?
Sure, I can start. I'm Amy Anderson, as Kathy said, VP of Client Services. I am one of those senior level marketing leaders that helps set strategies and plans for our clients who want to achieve growth and put those plans together to make it happen. Something that's not in my professional bio, a personal story I want to share. So today is my parents' 53rd wedding anniversary.
Oh.
And while they are luckily both retired, they both worked their butts off in their individual careers. And I've been thinking lately about all the ways they've guided me to be who I am, including in my career. So my dad was a CPA for over 40 years and my mom a nurse. And I really feel they instilled in me and my sisters to have an incredibly strong work ethic, a desire to help others, and the power of listening and patience, although I'm still working on that one. So just wanted to thank you both.
Well, you do have two high schoolers, so it's completely understandable.
Need lots of patience.
And Bill, you also have a little one, so patience is for sure. Tell us a little bit about
Sure, Bill Skowronski, there it is, content director here at Red Caffeine. I've been here a little over 3 years now, and one of the things that I do most, I've been enjoying most recently, is helping companies determine how they bring a differentiated position and message to the market. So often that's through the content that we see in websites, on email and advertising, everywhere that we bring a message to market. We want it to sound, look, and feel unique to each company. So I help from a content standpoint develop some of those strategies and do some of the research that identifies where the white space is for companies to really plant their flag and stand out. Uh, we'll talk a lot about the role that e-commerce and AI has had in things like content marketing a bit later as we go. Outside of my profile, one thing I wanted to mention is, as some of you who I work with know, I work out on a regular basis with this men's group called F3, and we communicate via Slack, much like all of our companies do. So a couple weeks ago, about a month ago now, I started a channel in our F3 Slack community around philosophy. I have a philosophy degree, and it allows me to bring quotes and pieces of Stoic philosophy to the group, and we all have conversations around how we can use this ancient Stoic philosophy to be better male community leaders. And that's been really rewarding. It's something that I enjoy doing and something that the men get a lot out of. It's a seemingly disconnected conversation, but we all really enjoy getting stronger in our minds as well as in our bodies.
Well, Bill, I've just seen like such a change in you since you've started to get invested in F3, both personally and, you look amazing and it just feels like you are just so embracing this healthy lifestyle. So, and what a valued community you've been a part of and helped build. So really love that part of your personal life. So, but I am going to get us onto the topics for today. I think we're going to just kick off with talking about M&A. I feel like I've been immersed in this for a few years now. A recent report came out from Ernst & Young back in May that predicted a significant increase in deal volume just based on some of the market economics and market conditions. And I feel like we're seeing it. We are seeing it constantly firsthand with our clients, our prospects. A lot of the CEOs that we're talking to are interested in exploring M&A as part of their growth strategy. And they're looking at ways to expand their offering or get an opportunity to get access to technology or different parts of their business that they may be lacking, but not wanting to invest of building from the ground up. So Amy, I'm going to turn this to you because you are working a lot with leaders on this topic. What are some of the key considerations that a business to business company should think about as they're looking to pursue M&A as a growth strategy?
Sure. So there's two ways to think about M&A as a growth strategy. First is growth by merging with or acquiring another company, or growth by your company being bought by another company. A smart way to get access to capital, invest dollars back into the company to really accelerate that growth. I could probably talk for a whole time about each one of those, but we're going to do a quick overview of the first one, which is, growth by merging with or acquiring another company. So as you mentioned, companies typically pursue M&A for a variety of reasons, from looking to expand their market share through new geographies and industries, or even buying a competitor. Or they might be looking to drive synergies and cost savings, diversify their product or service offering, or even get a competitive edge, buy some additional technology or innovation, or even buying a company to just acquire their talent. There's all different reasons why companies will do this. And, something we talk about a lot is sometimes it is easier to buy it instead of build it. So there's really two different ways to approach that. But no matter what your why is for why you're turning to M&A, there's really three key things that a company should think about. The first is just strategic alignment. Does the target company align with your long-term strategic goals, making sure that you really understand which of those things the targeted company or the acquired company is going to bring to your portfolio or to your company. We also really recommend digging into that cultural compatibility. Does the target company align with your own core values? Are they going to help move those forward? We actually see that cultural misalignment is one of the key reasons that M&A can fail. So making sure you're doing your due diligence there. And then also the financial due diligence. I'm not going to pretend to be a financial person, but I know how much due diligence goes into this side and how important it is to have the right partners to make sure, is this target company a safe financial risk? Even talking with, some of our clients who are interested in this, and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to turn over so much information. It's like, yeah, you got to open the kimono. People need to know what's going on to
Right.
make sure that they're making that solid investment. So when you're on that buying side, you want to make sure that there's really nothing hiding there either.
Yeah, and well, first of all, I challenge you a little bit on your financial acumen
Yeah.
because you're constantly pushing us on financials, and so I do think you know a lot more than you give yourself credit for. But yeah, I agree. Can you share some some of the client stories or some of the success stories that you've seen in the marketplace?
Sure. So, of course, there are some larger standouts in the business world for sure that we see, hit the newsstand. So, Salesforce's acquisition of Slack back in 2020, or Parker Hannifin's acquisition of Megit, if you're in the manufacturing space, back in 2021. But I'd like to share a story of a client that we're in the middle of right now, and I just absolutely love this. So we work with a manufacturing company, and they wanted to expand their overall offering with a specific capability. And at first, they were going to build it themselves. They had contracts ready to be signed for the land expansion, the building expansion, new equipment. But during a visit to a company to go see this equipment they were about to purchase, they wanted to see the equipment in action. They met the guy. They were so impressed by this man, the team, the overall operation. They decided to buy the company instead. So they're getting a new capability, access to their innovation, and an incredible team and talent, which will just accelerate their growth quickly. So we're in the middle of strategy of how these companies are coming together, but their origin story I thought was so great, of how you think you're on one path and then something can come in your line of sight that just really changes the trajectory. Doesn't change your objective of what you're trying to
Right,
achieve,
right.
but the
Yeah.
way you're going to go to market and how you make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about that all the time. I mean, there's a lot of ways to grow your business. So, being open to both options. I mean, we're talking about that on another opportunity right now. We don't know if for sure if the buy strategy is going to work or the build strategy is going to work. So we're going to try and test the waters with both scenarios out of the gate. So
Mhm.
I feel like we've also seen where acquisitions have gone drastically wrong, whether it's in the media or you learn about somebody's that sold their company and they've seen their business picked apart. The person that was going to buy it told them one thing, and what's happened in the aftermath has been completely different. So can you talk a little bit about what are some of the post-acquisition elements that really ensure the success of an M&A deal?
Definitely. So we are huge believers at Red Caffeine in a well-planned post-acquisition strategy. We really feel that it's critical to the success. The same way you're doing all of your due diligence up front with the business aspects, you need to do all the same due diligence with all of your key stakeholders and how you're communicating what's going on. So the strategy really starts with thinking about those three key stakeholders: your employees, your customers, and your owners and investors, really addressing their questions and concerns, and always putting yourself in their shoes and answering that with them, right? What's in it for me? That's what everybody is thinking. So to be able to put yourself in those shoes and really walk yourself through their journey with it all is going to be really important. So we recommend frequent and consistent communication. We really feel that's key, and really bringing those three stakeholders on the journey with you. Now, that doesn't mean you need to tell everybody everything every step of the way, but if you have a plan and you know your targets, and then you can have a great communication roadmap to tell people the right things at the right time, that's going to keep them informed and feeling a part of the process and keep that momentum going. So that's from a communication standpoint, really, really important. And then from a business roadmap, we've really adopted the Boston Consulting Group's philosophy on the best way to create that value throughout the entire integration process. So we follow their framework, but we really build each client's roadmap differently based on their situation. And there's really 5 main steps to that. So first is, we're going to keep on moving, keep on going. We're going to maintain that momentum in the current business and operate business as usual. It's so important that you don't take your eye off the ball of your everyday business while you're dealing with lots of bigger things up here. The second step is to really validate those synergies. Really think about, okay, this company that you're integrating with or that you're acquiring, what are those synergies that you have from operations, from your market overlaps, your customer overlaps? How are you going to maximize those? And then internally communicate them and bring them to a higher level. The third step is to build that new brand foundation and align those cultures to drive forward. So in some cases, a company may just be integrating right underneath that main brand, or maybe there's ways that you're bringing them together. So making sure that you know how to articulate, what does this new brand stand for? What is their story? Even what's the identity? Does the logo or physical identity of the brand need to change? And then even something like revisiting those core values. How are you bringing those companies together where it feels like everybody is contributing to the building of this new entity? We always say people support what they help build, and that is completely true here. The fourth step is using those combined capabilities to advance your competitive position. This is what you're here for. This is why you went through all of this. So shout it from the rooftops and make sure you're communicating any new capabilities to your current customers. What's in it for them? How are they going to have things different? And then how does your prospect list change of what you're able to go to market now that you are this expanded entity? And then the last piece is just really, and I make it sound so simple. I mean, these roadmaps can be anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But these are the basic steps that we really follow through. And then the last piece is really establishing that framework for possible future acquisitions or integrations, really taking note of what worked and what could be improved for the next one. Because we find that once companies are on this path, oh, I'm going to go grab this company now, or, oh, I want to merge with this company. They see the value and the benefits that we always want to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success for the next one.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't think this really differentiates a lot from how we approach a go-to-market, or as we call it, go-to-market plan in any business situation. But I do feel like there's certain nuances, and somebody very smart that I work with always says they just want to know we have a plan, right? So our customers, our employees, they really just want to know that we have a plan. So taking them along that pathway is really important. So I think the last note on this topic, and I know Amy and Bill, we've been working with a number of companies that are family owned or very, long generational, 50, 75, 100-year organizations, and they may not have that interest from that next generation of the family to take over the business. So we're seeing more leaders acknowledge this and then explore some different exit options. And this is such a tough and tricky topic, because if you've been a part of a family-owned business, you have a lot of passion about your business, but we're seeing leaders do things like ESOPs, where they're building a strategy for employee ownership. Or we had a recent client take on a recapitalization of their business so that they had the expertise and the financial ability to grow without giving up all of their equity in the business. But they knew that there was going to be a next generation of leadership needed to be established. So they've got the right team to do that. And then, these are the types of things that I feel like there's more planning going on. People are much more savvy. They're really thinking more long tail about succession strategy, and they're getting their ducks in a row a lot sooner versus being forced out of the market, or losing market share so much that they don't have an entity that's worth much at the end. So a lot of interesting things going on in that space. I don't know, Bill, did you have something to add?
No, I would just echo what Amy said about it being such a comprehensive process. You really can't start thinking about it too soon. Whether you let everyone in the organization in behind the scenes, obviously, is a company by company decision, but there's so much that can go wrong if it's not proactively planned for. I'm glad Amy touched on those points because end to end, it's an important process to get right at every step for every audience. And we've
Yeah.
seen that time and time again.
Yeah, because I do feel like that's the stories that we tend to hear, where the people that are left behind are just blindsided, and it is pretty traumatic, and it kind of sets you back in your ability to move the business forward when you haven't really outlined how you're going to transition out of the business. So yeah, I think
Right.
that.
And I think you really hit on something too, which is the savviness of business owners, and that they've worked so hard to build something. They don't just want to close their doors, and they care about their employees. And I think because of how much more normal it is to talk about this and all of the resources that are out there, I love that these business owners are really looking at options and then having the flexibility to change their mind, or look at something different that's going to fit better for the future of the company. I think that's spot on.
Yeah, I just feel like almost every day I'm hearing about a new strategy for thinking about growth or succession through M&A. So I really like the optionality that it provides business leaders and organizations. So, all right, we're going to switch gears and talk about the Bill. We're going to talk about
We're talking
automation.
about e-commerce.
E-commerce. Sorry, I've lost my track. So we are seeing more and more businesses that have this very high touch approach to their customer experience, and they are very reticent, especially in the manufacturing and industrial spaces, about putting something that distances a salesperson or an experience with the customer from that high touch experience. But we're seeing more digital natives come into the marketplace, and they're getting more involved in these corporate buying decisions. So the expectation from this group of buyers is so much different than the older generations that have led the buying decisions in the past. So more thought about e-commerce and tools like that being just a table stake in the B2B landscape. So I think, Bill, you surfaced a recent survey that noted that 80% of B2B buyers expect companies to offer the same convenience that B2C companies are offering, and that e-commerce has become the most effective B2B sales channel. So what sort of specific changes have driven this shift?
Yeah, I think you hit on it when you said that B2B buyers have an expectation. At the end of the day, we're individual people. We're all used to what we see in our daily lives. So as we go through our day-to-day buying, whether it's buying groceries, buying products online, we're used to an e-commerce experience now, say ever since certainly the pandemic, but a bit before that. So that expectation carries over to the workplace too. We want to make our purchases in the same way that we make them at home. And I think B2B companies are getting much, much smarter about how to provide that kind of experience all the way through, again, end to end in the research phases, in the consideration phases. I'd say that the big takeaway here is that B2B e-commerce is not really much as much as B2C commerce. It's not as much about the transaction. It's more about the amount of work that builds up to that transition point, the transaction. So we talk to a lot of our clients about how they're going to educate buyers and how buyers are going to go through their own journey, which we know now more than ever includes several touch points, that several pieces of interaction with the company before you ever fill out a form, before you ever raise your hand and say, I'm ready to buy something. You're doing a ton of research in the background. So when you talked about the apprehension that we see, it's coming from the company side saying, well, we don't want to give up that relationship with the customer. It's absolutely right. But from a content standpoint, what you're actually doing through a variety of e-commerce plays is you're strengthening that relationship with your customer. You're giving them access to answers to their questions. You're letting them take more control of the buying process. So I talk to our clients about e-commerce, I'm rarely talking about the checkout process. I'm talking more about things that happen earlier. Like if I'm buying a $100,000 piece of B2B machinery or equipment, I'm likely to spend several months going through that process. So I want to do things like download product literature and service manuals, perhaps even after the purchase. But even the way that I search, I may be searching by part number, or I may want to know who local distributors in my area are. And these are all things that we get used to in a B2C sense, so we carry that over. I'll give you a quick example. We just finished our basement where I'm recording from today, and I wanted to buy a TV for the basement. So I went online and I was looking at products side by side, just like I would in a store, same experience. But I found an augmented reality tool on a website that showed me exactly what the TV I was looking at would look like on any wall of my room just by using my camera on my phone. So I was able to see, do I want to put a 65-inch TV over here or a 60-inch TV here? And now we're starting to see that in the B2B space too.
Right.
We're working with a manufacturer that produces these enormous pieces of equipment, but they also have a tool that allows you to see, well, where would this equipment look? How would it look if it was in my space? Is my room even big enough for this?
Right.
So those are all really important questions that we would ask further along in the sales process. But some of these e-commerce tools now allow us to get that buying information back to our larger decision-making group or just in our back pocket, so that before we ever contact a company to start that sales process, we're much more educated buyers as a result. So
Yeah.
some of those things I think are just fantastic ways to use e-commerce, to use the wider perspective of the buying process online, uh, instead of just waiting for the checkout at the end of it.
Yeah, I would say too, I feel like we've got, some organizations with smaller sales teams. So even automating some of the buying experience without automating all of the buying experience can be really additive to, how somebody gets the information they need or gets closer to the sale, and then lets the, subject matter experts or sales engineers really provide solutions once
Mhm.
that engagement of an e-commerce kind of purchase gets underway. You might not have to fully check out and buy something, with your credit card, but you get it far enough along in the process that it becomes, a really right time for a solutions expert to come into the equation and provide that end, or
Yeah.
what you can expect after purchase sometimes. So
I think that's a bridge we can build between the conversation around e-commerce and the conversation around AI, one of the other trends we'll discuss in a little bit. But when people think about e-commerce, they think of it as very cold, very impersonal. But many of the people who are contributing to the content you see throughout the e-commerce journey are the subject matter experts behind the scenes. They're the ones writing the information. They're the ones helping build chatbots with the right questions, the right answers. And that's what somewhat allows us to defray some of the fear around giving up customer control to e-commerce. It's actually a way to empower the customer to reach out to some expert earlier in their journey than they would if they felt like the only thing I can do is call and get a quote, call and make a purchase. Now there are many more e-commerce ways to interact with people behind the scenes that we just didn't have access to before. And I see that growing moving into next year.
Yeah, and I feel like, you said something earlier that really just hit home with me, and I think I've been saying it all my career because I've been involved with a lot of, software development projects, and if you are not sort of communicating the why change your buying habits or why adopt this platform to your customers and taking them again along that journey with you in that transition, then I do think you will have an epic fail of
Mm-hmm.
launching a new e-commerce solution. But if you are, giving them the rationale, telling them what it means to them, like Amy was saying, then I think it becomes a lot easier. And I know you guys have been both personally have been working on a client for a couple of years that have shifted to an e-commerce buying solution.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes a lot of sense for their business.
And it's certainly not a light switch. You switch everyone from one track over to the next.
Right.
There's still, even in the client you just mentioned, there's still a lot of people who prefer to buy by speaking directly to a sales rep or to call them on the phone, send them an email, even text them. We're seeing a lot more often. And we don't want to push that experience out of their hands. We don't want to take it away and say, no, now you have to go to the website to buy. That's completely against the rationale here. We're just giving people more opportunities to engage how they feel comfortable. Maybe it's 2 a.m. where they're making their buying decision and they don't want to get somebody on the phone. They want to just do a bit of research and pick it up in the morning. So I want to give people options to do what's best for their situation.
Yeah, you know me so well. I'm definitely buying things at like 5 a.m. So I felt like that was personally for me.
Those are regret decisions, regret buys.
Amy, did you have something to add?
Well, I was just going to say that I feel like such a theme from this conversation and what we talk about too is just we're building confidence. We're building confidence in people that they can get enough information to make the call themselves and, to be able to know what they want. And that client you were referring to that Bill and I work on together, we've pushed for the more content. We actually filmed training videos on some of their products last year because their, FAQs were coming in and questions about these. And so we, helped produce a video series, which, showed people not just our expertise, but gave them the confidence that they would know what to do if they ran into an issue or, needed, some additional support, but that it gives them the confidence that this is the right, part for them.
Yeah,
Just
I
to
feel like
tie in bow on that point for that client, one thing that we see is this tug of war between a company and their sales team, whether that's internal or their external distributors. The client Amy's talking about is a distributor. So they were able to, by building an e-commerce presence, by establishing that they're committed to doing a different kind of business, they were able to raise up the ranks on the radar of this OEM, and they partnered with the OEM to create that video content. Like that's a win for everybody. If an OEM is looking at its distributors and saying, well, how are you going to sell more of our product? And you're saying, we're going to invest in e-commerce. We're going to make it as easy as possible for people to buy. That just shows that you're invested in what's best for everybody. So I think that's a great example.
And I think that is really thinking about a customer-centric strategy because I think you are just providing them more tools and access to the things that they need to not only make a purchase, but be able to get the optimum value out of their purchase. So again, we're going to kind of lean into automation, which is another, technology, obviously, but there has been a lot of resistance to automating certain parts of the sales funnel. So with, the ideal being automation integrated at every stage of the funnel, how should companies, Amy, be thinking about their automation strategy?
Yes. And it's true. I think like so many people, myself included, we're control freaks. We want to have our hands in everything, on everything, all at the same time. But time is our most precious commodity. It's, the one thing we really can't get more of. So, being open to automating certain things, honestly, especially the things that there are the biggest pains, like find solutions. So honestly, the biggest advice is just start. Choose one thing that would make your life easier. Choose one thing that would make a process easier. So I have like 4 territories in which this to consider. So first is just understanding your sales funnel, and then identify the most repetitive tasks. What can be automated without sacrificing the quality of the customer interaction? Is there something with how you're doing lead nurturing, how you're doing your follow-ups with customers, whether it's a quote or an order, or even data entry? What are the parts of your sales funnel that you could potentially automate? The second area would be thinking about what post-sale activities you could automate. Are there things you could do with, new customer onboarding and sending them a series of emails, welcome to our company, welcome to our family, here's what you need to do to get started. What kind of journeys like that could be automated? Or even customer satisfaction surveys. We have a client where after every new customer comes on board, they get a survey. How do we do? Talk to us, tell us. And that is all automated, but the data that we are getting is so incredible. The third area would be thinking about where you can integrate automation across your tools, your internal programs and systems. Does your ERP talk to your CRM, or does your CRM talk to your website? Does your website talk to your email platform? Where is information being shared manually, and how could those integrations be put into place that it happens automatically? And then the fourth bucket is just thinking about, what are you monitoring? How are you optimizing things, and how could it be better? So really using data to drive decisions, and whether you're getting that data from something like Google Analytics, or maybe you're getting that data from your email platform to understand open rates or, click-through rates, what are you learning, and how could you optimize from there? And not being afraid to test. You can automate a lot of tests, and it could honestly be as simple as testing two different subject lines for an email, but really putting those things out there to be able to monitor how you're doing. I would love to share a couple examples of
Yeah.
how automation has helped with some of our clients. So first, we have a manufacturing client who does forging. And they shared with us that the number one question prospects asked them was, can you forge my part? Their forging process only allows for certain part dimensions, so size. So we built a calculator on their website so people could answer that question themselves. And be clear, the answer is never no. Even if the part is bigger than their specs, we say, oh, we need some more information. We need to talk about this. Contact one of our, engineers or sales reps. And that has become an incredible lead generation tool for them. Another example is the client, Bill was referring to, that, they're a distributor of refueling equipment in the aviation industry. And we worked with them to set up a new customer welcome email journey. So once an order is placed from a new customer, their CRM and email systems connect, so they are automatically entered into a 9 email nurture journey across 3 months that shares more information about the company, shares additional capabilities or services that they offer, all the different ways that this company can make their life better. So those are just a couple examples. And the success rate of these emails is incredible. We see not only great engagement with those emails themselves, but the repeat orders from those customers who are in the journey is significantly higher than those who are not. So just a couple examples of how automation can help.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'm always got my eye on what's next and what's going to impact both the sales and marketing process. So, what are some of the tools? I think I just shared one that I loved with about client onboarding, or, doing sales presentations with our team, because I saw it in a sales pitch I received. So I'm like, oh, we gotta integrate that into our client onboarding process. But what are some of the things that you really feel like are on the must-have list for 2025?
Sure. So I think companies will benefit most from those sales automation tools that integrate AI, that enable some data driven decision making, really giving you those results, and then anything that provides insights into customer behavior. So a few that fit those buckets. CRMs, you will always hear us singing from the rooftops of how important a CRM is. And that could be, utilizing a bigger company platform like a Salesforce, a HubSpot, a Zoho. It could also be a homegrown one on Excel, anything that, as long as you're gathering that information and have a central, one source of truth of what's happening with your customer base, just keep track of the data somewhere. A second bucket would be in automated email platforms, another really key tool of how we automate and move things forward. So, platforms like Ordo, MailChimp, Constant Contact, there's so many different ones out there at different price levels. There's really something out there for everyone, and it would really help, cull down on the time. And then the last bucket is around lead generation and prospecting tools. There's new ones out there. Zoom Info has really changed up their offering. We partner with Dealfront, which is, reverse IP technology, where we can see what companies are hitting your site and then build programs around how to go after those companies, or even something like LinkedIn Sales Navigator. There are so many ways out there to understand who your prospective buyers are, what their behaviors are, and then how you can use that information to, further grow your company.
Yeah. And I think the only thing else I would maybe add is that, if you have a lot of technology in your MarTech stack, really looking at how you're using those tools. And then, if you're an inch deep, or you're using a few features from certain tools, what else? Where they're always adding innovation to these products. And most of us, and we find this with most of our clients as well, are underutilizing these technologies. So what more can we get out of these tools that we're not already getting? Or do we need to go to something that serves us better because our needs have grown?
It doesn't always need to be shiny new ball, shiny
Right.
new ball.
Exactly.
It's a
little better.
what is the current platform I'm using? What's new? Talk to your rep, look online. They're always adding new technologies and integrations.
Right. All right. Well, we can't leave a trends conversation without specifically talking about AI. There's been so much that has happened in the marketing and sales realm. So it's increasingly influencing our B2B marketing strategy. So, Bill, how are companies using AI to enhance, decision making, efficiency, and other things within the sales and marketing process?
Yeah, it's really a question of how are they not anymore? It's
Right.
becoming so innocuous that I can't think of a company that's not in some way, whether they realize it or not, using artificial intelligence. I think it comes back to what we talked about regarding e-commerce, redefining how we think about this. I would say most people in some business organizations think of AI, they think of Chat GPT, or they think of something that grabs a lot of headlines. See OpenAI just reevaluated for how many hundreds of billions of dollars. They think of the very simple tasks that you can take off your plate, like Amy mentioned, some of the things that perhaps you don't want to be spending as much calorie count on, that make work much more efficient. But there's also ways to optimize things like your supply chain in real time with AI tools. And really, at the end of the day, whether you're investing in AI to develop predictive analytics and do better sales and marketing forecasting, or you want it to do some of the actual customer facing work like a chatbot would. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is become much more efficient with the time that we have, so that we can allocate our resources where we know that they are needed the most. So we look at companies who are going through early stage market building, and we use it a lot for research, just to do some of the legwork to say, surface all the companies in this given territory or in this given industry that we can do some competitive analysis around. But then, as it's always been, the work is then given to the humans to apply some insight to and to gather to distill, as Amy said, all this automated data that we get from any platform. How do we use AI, we use automation to build this huge cloud of data, but then how do we distill it down into a bucket we can drink from? How do we bring all that information into, as Amy said, data-driven decision making? And that's where AI does a lot of the heavy lifting that makes our job as humans a lot easier. So we go through this, we see so much fast evolving progress on the research side, on content creation side, but it's not without consequence. I think we're seeing a lot of pushback against obviously AI created content or AI mistakes. Just a couple weeks ago, we were looking into a series of companies and trying to learn as much as we could. In some ways, AI works like a search engine, depending on which tool you're using. But we were trying to get a handle on what we could learn about certain companies. And we had to vet that information with humans with their boots on the ground to say, hey, are these really competitors in this industry? We found out that some are not. Some
Right.
just say on their website that they're competing in certain areas, but in reality, they're not. So at the end of the day, AI has a lot of limitations that still require people with experience and the ability to make connections to what's actually happening in the real world. It's not in any way going to remove the work that we're doing. That said, I'm continually impressed, and I think this will be a way that people invest moving forward into 2025 to check an AI tool and to make sure that it's calibrated in the right way. And we can't just set it loose and expect it to do all the work for us. For example, I was really curious when I was doing some market research. If you identified these 10 companies we should really be looking at, what criteria did you use to determine that those were the leaders in the San Francisco market, for example? And I was really impressed by the rationale that the tool gave back to me. So we're looking at things like reviews on platforms like Google, Yelp, and Angie. We're looking for extensive experience, which communicates a deeper understanding of needs in a certain market. We're looking at versatility and a comprehensive range of services beyond just the core offering. So there are a lot of really good reasons and good thought that went into the results that we got back. But again, at the end of the day, it was up to us to say, yes, this is where we draw the line, and this is where we go with the information that we were given. Very much like you can see a sales forecast, but that has to be adjusted based on what you're actually seeing in the real world. So I'm excited to see what happens next with AI. I think we've grown so much these last couple of years, and it's become such a public conversation that more people are now engaged in it. More people are interested in what can we do to become more efficient, to become better optimized, to, as Amy said, take some of the work that's taking our human capital away from where it needs to be off of our plates. How can we use AI to leverage that in so many ways? I think that's going to be exciting to see in the next year.
Yeah, I feel like, I'm learning something 3 and 4 times a day about using AI, and I definitely feel like there's some best practices. You kind of touched on a few, validating the research. I am really impressed with some of the information that it's turned out in research, but I've also caught things where like that those people don't work at that company any longer, so it is very interesting to refine how you do your queries. Is there anything else that comes to mind, Bill, that in terms of things that you're doing that really are best practices around how you're using the tools, or that you've learned by doing something that's been a mistake or misinformation that has been.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's process driven, but there has to be a repeatable way that you're ensuring the information you're getting back is accurate. And then, as we talked about earlier, what do you do with that information? Now that you have it, we know that AI, like any sort of interactive tool, can be a black hole. You can lose so much time just digging into curiosities. And you're looking at data, you're peeling back a layer and then another layer. But at what point do you stop? At what
Right.
point, whether you're looking in a CRM and you're pulling out data points based on trends, at what point do you stop? And I think that actually starts by going into the process with guiding questions. This is what we're trying to accomplish. This is what we're going to look for, and this is how we're going to use that information. And I think, like any other data point, it's a valuable data point if it changes or confirms what you're doing. If you look at that data point and it says, no, we should be making some adjustments, we should be pouring gas in this area or pulling back the pedal in this area, that's when you know you've got valuable data on your hands. Otherwise, we're just gathering information, and we can continue gathering information over and over, and that's what AI is great at providing. But at the end of the day, you have to have a purpose, and going
Right.
into it with that purpose, I think, puts some guardrails on how you use it, and then being transparent, of course, in where you're using AI and where you're not, puts all your cards on the table and says that there may be mistakes here. We have to make sure that we vet this before we move forward.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% right. And I just recently listened to, I think it was a Corn Ferry webinar where they talked about AI, and what they recommended was kind of sharing use cases across a team. So like recording use cases that they're doing experiments in some of their workflows, and then sharing that out throughout their organization so that people are learning from people.
Mm.
So, as we know, like if we can learn something from someone else, then we don't have to make that mistake ourselves. So I think that there's a lot of things around how we're using AI and how to improve kind of organizational use of AI that are to come, as well as kind of corporate standards around how we're using it and how we're informing customers about the use of AI.
Yeah, industry by industry, company by company, there are different use cases, and certainly whether it's at a trade show or at a workshop where you can see how other people have used it within your space. Because,
Mhm.
like I said, at Red Caffeine, we're not optimizing supply chain issues, but manufacturers are, so they can learn from each other. I think when
Right.
we can learn that information and bring it to other clients, they're always very appreciative of that.
Well, we talked about everything we promise: AI, mergers and
Mm.
acquisitions, marketing automation, sales and marketing automation, e-commerce. But there are some other things that are going on in the space. So I want to ask, like, what else has been on your radar? Or are you thinking about as we're helping our clients plan for their growth strategies in 2025?
Two big things on my mind are account-based marketing. I read a stat that said 75% of companies are expected to adopt it by 2025. And basically, it just, instead of taking a really broad approach, it's just really focusing in and targeting your top prospects. Instead of, being, thin here, it's, how can you go deeper with these customers? What more can you learn about them? How can you target them? How can you use customization? How can you really land and expand within one client, one customer that you have greater opportunities with? So that's one thing on my mind. And then another thing that clients are asking a ton about is video. And
Mm.
video, I feel like before was like, oh, like just get it up there, right? Let's just do something, like let's just have video. And now I feel like it's gone from quantity to depth, and really making sure that there's the value creation in that video, that you're really clear on the objective, you're clear what you want somebody to walk away with. And in this day and age of getting to know people and cultures and companies, video is really a great way to share who you are as a company and what you offer. So those are two
Mm.
things top of my mind.
Bill, what's on your mind? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I'm going to be really curious to see how companies come out of the November election cycle. just in general, we've seen so many are playing it very conservatively, unsure how the economy is going to respond, and understandably so. This is always a tumultuous time, not only nationally but globally. There are impacts that will come out of November's elections. But what I like to see is the companies who are building up to it quietly, thinking about how they're going to hit the ground running in 2025 if they decide to push their foot down on the gas. Those opportunities aren't going to be necessarily different. It's just choosing which ones you want to pursue. So if a company is going to get aggressive with their growth in 2024, 25, you really have to be starting to think about that now. And you
Right.
can't wait to see how things shake out. Certainly, you can wait until the election's over, until the dust settles to make final decisions. But there's no reason you can't have a strategy in place to say, if things go this way, we're going to hit the ground running, because your competition is. Competitors are already making those plans, and you can either be ahead of that or you can be behind it, responding because you waited. So I'm really curious to see what companies are building those strategic plans now in September and October, and which ones wait until the new year and then are behind as a result.
3-4 months behind the rest of us. Yeah, I agree. I'm always a fan of kind of a contingency strategy anyways. Like, here's best case scenario, here's, not best case scenario. So we've got a little bit of a plan B if things are not as we thought in terms of market conditions. I guess my thought is, after being at a couple live events that had so much impact on me, just live events, they feel back. I was really impressed with how many people were participating at IMTS. I know I'm going to be attending Women in Manufacturing in October, and they are going to have a massive increase from last year's event. So it's really impressive. But as we know, there really is a lot of expense to participating in a live event. And I know, Bill, this is a hot, something close to your heart because you've done a lot of training for our clients around get more impact in doing a live event, both pre and during and post. So I think there's something to that face-to-face opportunity, but then, making it so valuable when you've got an ability to be around a lot of people in a very short time frame. How do you capitalize on those opportunities?
Yeah, it's really important. It's important to not be a passive participant in something like a trade show. Like you don't have to just stay at your booth and talk to the people who pass by you and that's it. Like to be much more proactive about forcing yourself to get more value than the people who are next to you, just waiting at their booth for people to come. I think it's very interesting. When trade shows started slowing down, we saw an increase in podcasts and live streams. And now you're starting to see podcasters coming to the live events
Right.
because they know that's where people are. It's so backwards now. But
Yeah.
that should tell you that, yes, this is where you have to be and where you have an opportunity to see thousands of people at one time. And like I said, you can actively engage them in the conversation as opposed to just waiting at your booth for someone to show up or your scheduled customer visits.
Well, I didn't get a chance to tell you, but I did walk up to the booth, and two of the guys that you trained were like, to our client's booth were like, "Oh my gosh, we knew we weren't following some of the things Bill told us." I'm like, I will not tell
Shame.
him.
Yeah.
Bag, I told you, and everybody watching today. So
That's
I
funny.
thank you guys so much. This was so fun. It's it's always great to think about these things and talk with you all about these things. I know we don't work on all the same clients, but we know a lot about what's going on, and to be able to share, what's working for our clients, what we're thinking about, what we're going to be incorporating into the plans, I think is really valuable to the marketplace. So I appreciate you both being here. I also want to let people know that if you've got a question for Bill or Amy or myself, please feel free to reach out. We've got their contact information here noted. So just remember to put business as unusual in the subject line if you're reaching out via email or LinkedIn. And then I also, want to obviously thank our sponsors, HR Source and M3 Learning. We really value their partnership. You'll be seeing our friends from HR Source on our next event, and then M3 will be participating in November. So we'll get to see Mary Lynn. If you could go to the next slide, Mary Lynn is going to be joining me. It's been a minute since we've talked about HR and talent strategies, and it's been a little bit of a different situation in HR and hiring and recruiting in the last few months. So Mary Lynn and I are going to talk about the big stay, kind of the not so sexy version of the great resignation. So people are actually staying in their jobs. So, that is a new trend that we're talking a lot about in the HR space. We're also going to talk about, to Bill's point, what are some of the economic shifts, the election, how are those going to impact the job market and employee expectations? We'll dive into a little bit around the generational factors that are, how are we bridging the gap with our employees with very digital savvy natives to technology, as well as people that are older in the workforce, and how are we leveraging and upskilling those diverse needs that we have for our businesses. And then, a little bit more around understanding and implementing some of the fair and equitable hiring processes. So AI, of course, is a topic, and it seems like in every sector. So AI has been used a lot in the candidate preparation process. So how do you recognize when a candidate's actually used AI to build their cover letter and resume, and how are you, leveraging tools to kind of sift through that in the application process? So as we wrap up today, I just hope we brought some value to our guests. And if you like some of the ideas that we shared, they fit into your growth plan for 2025. I want to again thank Amy and Bill for joining me and providing their thoughts. It was a really, really great conversation. And then if you have any more questions about any of these ideas, or you're thinking about your growth strategy for 2025 and you have some questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us at Red Caffeine. And until next time, let's continue to challenge the usual and pursue innovative business solutions.